And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Back from my sabbatical, my hiatus. Good evening on this May 2nd, 2025, here from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas. My name is Yori Kemp. I'm the host of the Lime Vibe podcast, and I thank you for joining me again for another broadcast of this Lime Vibe show. So, I'm back. I haven't been here since last year, December, 2024 December. And the reason why was because I was trying to wrap up my law degree, ladies and gentlemen. I was trying to wrap up my law degree, and I was making sure that I graduated on time. I had an extra class to make up. I was trying to make sure I graduated with my law degree. That came first and foremost. But, you know, we're back now. We're going to have our regular Friday evenings now for the rest of the summer, for the rest of the year. And, I start bar school in October, hopefully. So it may be some disruptions there again, but we'll see how that goes. But I thank you for sticking with us. For those who stay subscribed to us, I thank you so much. And this is not going to be a long show, and I guess announcing that I'm back this lap. All right? But let's have something, though. Like I said, I've been swamped with work. And there's nothing I could have done about that, man. The exams finished, came to an end last week, Wednesday. And so I took some time off, of course, to take my exams. And now I'm back. And so when I say take some time off, I mean in terms of take time off before I could have started last week Friday, but I want to make sure I take some more time off to ensure I dump my mind. You know, make sure I get all of those law cases out of my head, and make sure I deprogram myself to get back to a normal human being. So yeah. What happened just recently, last week Tuesday, this Tuesday actually, Trinidad and Tobago has a new Prime Minister. Well, she's not a new Prime Minister, she's the returning Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar. And so she won an election in Trinidad and Tobago on Tuesday, and she beat the newly installed Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the then Stuart Young, who took over from the previous Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, back in February of this year. And so we have a new Prime Minister, so Kamala's back. And the UNC is back with a United National Congress Party. They beat the PNM Party, the People's National Movement Party of Trinidad and Tobago, led by Stuart Young. And a lot can be said about that, because Keith Rowley had beat her 2 times before that. And so now Dr. Keith Rowley, he bowed out and he pushed it over to somebody else. And now he couldn't handle the pressure, now the UNC's back. And so I'm not sure if Dr. Rowley would have been beaten. Nobody knows. If he would have run against Kamala for a 3rd time, who knows? But, he did beat it twice before. So that says something. All right? And then it could be that Rowley's just stepping back for the time being, just wanting to ensure that somebody else runs in the stead for the election, and he's just taking a break and he'll be back. I personally believe that, the UNC and the PNM were working together. Rowley was working together with Kamala all these years. And you can't disabuse me of that. For example, her current Attorney General is John Jeremy. and he was the former Attorney General under the PNM government led by Patrick Manning, God rest his soul, who passed away a few years ago. And so she took a former PNM Attorney General and turned him into her Attorney General. That's her first cabinet pick. That's Kamala Prasad-Bissessa's first cabinet pick. So we'll have to see what else happens. But that's where it is, man. And so congratulations, Kamala Prasad-Bissessa. Actually, I have no problems with her. She seems to be a straightforward shooter. She seems to be a level-headed politician as well. She's stuck in with it, even though there were some disruptions in her party, some defections. They had some defections from her party going to the PNM before the election. And so that's the way politics goes inside Trinidad. Okay? Otherwise than that, congratulations, Kamala Prasad-Bissessa, for coming back. Oh my goodness. There's another story now. We can't not talk about these Trump tariffs, because that's a good segue from leading from the Caribbean to what could affect the Caribbean and these Trump tariffs. Okay. We all know that Donald Trump, the U.S. President Donald Trump, he put tariffs on everybody. And he hit China the hardest, right? And we believe that China will have to tap out before the end of time, because here's the thing. People think that China is this behemoth. I don't think so, because they depend on U.S. consumers to fund those factories. If U.S. consumers aren't buying Chinese cheap products, their economy is going to crumble, because they did not make the reforms that were necessary to, first of all, underpin democracy, and second of all, really strengthen free markets. And so when it's a government-controlled economy, they're going to collapse. And that was the cruelest thing Donald Trump could have done to millions of Chinese people. But he had to do it because China kept on stealing technology from the United States. IP technology, intellectual property, patents, and things of that nature. And then Trump had their own tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers in China. Companies could not invest in China the way they could come into the United States and invest in the United States. And it's been over 40 years now where the reformation process of China really started. I think China joined the WTO, let me make sure, in 2001. So that's 2010, 2020. That's going on 25 years now, man. 25 years, and China still has not made the free market reforms that were enunciated to them upon their ascension to the WTO, the World Trade Organization. So what do you want people to do? No one respects the WTO. If the United States is going to just unilaterally impose tariffs across all countries in the world and hit China in particular, who's going to stop the United States? Nobody. And so this is where it's come to. And they're trying to make it seem as if the U.S. President Donald Trump, he's being so irrational. No, the American companies have been complaining about Chinese markets for years now. The intellectual theft and the theft in intellectual property, and the lack of access to Chinese markets and investments. So this isn't brand new, and it had to come to an end. And at the end of the day, I believe the Chinese government, they're going to have to capitulate, because their economy cannot withstand not having American consumers. Okay, this tariff is going to hurt them more. It's going to hurt the United States. Yeah, we have a few, fools crying and complaining in the United States that, oh no, we're not going to get our goods in time, and our phones are going to be an extra $20 high. Yeah. That's for you. You're flush with cash. The average Chinese isn't flush with cash. Most of that money that these Chinese factories and these Chinese manufacturers make, it goes to the state government. There's still a planned economy. So they're going to hurt a lot more. Any reduction in U.S. dollars and U.S. capital in China right now is going to hurt them more. It's going to hurt the average American consumer. Right now, it's painful. I understand. You're being used to having it so easy. Getting the iPhone for $50 or whatever the price is. I'm a Samsung guy. I'm just saying, just trying to support Donald Trump during this time, and he's trying to correct China in their trade practices. This is going to be important moving for the future. I don't think anybody on the western side of the hemisphere can afford for the United States to collapse and crumble. We all depend on the United States. What are we going to do? We're going to call China our nearest next door neighbor, our dearest next door neighbor? No. China's too far away. They're going to be looking out for the Filipinos and the Taiwanese and the Singaporeans. Whereas the United States, despite their faults, has always been with the Caribbean through thick and thin. They stopped spending money after the Cold War, and that's fine. But to neglect the history that the Caribbean has developed with the United States is foolish. It's just foolish. And you're doing it at your own peril. They can get to us quicker than the Chinese could. Trust me with that. And as a result of the trade policy, the Caribbean sent a delegation to the United States Trade Representative last month, so they could, plead their cause. They could throw themselves at the mercy of the U.S. Trade Representative, and saying that in addition to the tariffs, the Trump government had also placed a $1.5 million tax on Chinese ships entering into the United States and the ports. And so that was going to have a profound effect on Caribbean businesses. And so the $1.5 million tax is still on. However, because of the delegation that went to the U.S. Trade Representative from the Caribbean, that includes large import competing businesses, shipping companies, and policymakers. Because of that delegation, we were able to allow or to get the United States to put a waiver on ships that are bound to the Caribbean. So they won't pay that $1.5 million if they come into United States ports and then come to the Caribbean. We've gotten a waiver as a result of that. Thank God because of that. And so Trump, listen, he's not intending to hurt us intentionally. He's just trying to make a point to all the people that have been taking advantage of the United States. And I don't think they're gonna like that moving forward in the future, because this backlash was happening for a while. The United States was acting very flaccid after the Cold War came to an end. They were acting really soft, as if we can go back to being on peaceful terms, and that there aren't still enemies out there in the world that want to attack the United States. And I think 9/11 was a stark wake-up call for Americans, and they seem to be forgetting it again. They think that, everyone out there just loves Americans. No, people don't like Americans. They don't, and that's truthful. Yeah, and the more northern the American is, the more people dislike them. When you start to get north of North Carolina, they become really arrogant and really self-centered and really disgusting, to be honest with you. And so nobody really is in love with Americans. We respect them, but it's foolhardy for these liberals and these people that are living in La La Land to think that America is just this one loved country. No. America has done a lot of things around the world as well. Let's not forget that. And we respect America. We wouldn't harm America, of course. But that's us. Let's not think that other people would not attack the United States. And we seen it with 9/11, with Osama bin Laden. Let's hear from Trump on these tariffs and how he's laughing at China now going through it. Let's listen.
So it's very exciting, and we have a lot of things going. We took over on January 20th. These are quarterly reports. We took over on January 20th. The tariffs haven't kicked in yet. I know that, and I don't want this to happen, but I know that China is doing very poorly right now. I just saw some reports coming out, and I don't want that to happen to China. I like the president a lot, President Xi. I don't want it to happen. I was actually saddened to hear it, but they are getting absolutely hammered in China. And, they're sending boats, the biggest boats in the world, carrying cargo like nobody's ever seen before. These are the biggest boats in the world, biggest cargo ships in the world. And they're coming and they're turning around in the Pacific Ocean. They're doing a big U-turn and going back because they don't want the goods, because 145 tariff. But at a certain point, I hope we're going to make a deal with China. We're talking to China, but their factories are closing all over China because we're not taking their product. We don't want their product unless they're going to be fair with us. And that includes intellectual property and other things. There are a lot of things far beyond just buy, sell. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, I was not, because somebody said, well, were you happy? I said, I am not happy. I want China to do well. I want every country to do well. But they have to treat us fairly also. So
well, there you have it, you know. Trump's laying it on pretty thick just then. And of course, he wants them to be fair with the United States, right? And that's his right as the United States president. He's been talking about this since the 70s. You know, everyone's been taking advantage of the United States, and he calls, you know, American policymakers of previous years fools, right? But at the end of the day, you know, I think that, you know, China has to back off. Absolutely, they have to back off. They can't afford. See, the average American can afford $20 extra on their T-shirts or their cell phones. They can afford that. China cannot afford 10 million people being unemployed from these factories. It's going to lead to social chaos, and that's the risk they ran. You know, another situation is, I don't think you guys have been watching this Shannon Sharpe situation. That's another situation that's brewing. The Shannon Sharpe situation with this audio with this lady, this Gabrielle Zuniga. Oh my goodness. You know, it's just a mad scene where I'm pulling up the video right now for you actually. Let's see if you can find listen to Shannon Sharpe threatening to choke this lady, which is absolutely insane. I wonder if this is it here. Let's go here. 1, 2. No, not that one. Let's go to another one. And so this isn't the first time, you know, Shannon Sharpe's been involved in some sort of sexual assault allegation. He had one before he left, you know, Fox FS1, Fox Sports News. And it was allegations that he had, you know, choked a female colleague. And they kind of downplayed that for a while, you know. And all of a sudden, Shannon had just left Fox Sports. And it was just abrupt. And everyone thought it was because of the on-air spat he had with Skip Bayless, right? Yeah, and that's good. You know, and I look at Skip Bayless a bit different now, man. I have a bit more respect for Skip Bayless because he knew what was going on with Shannon Sharpe and with the sexual assault case at Fox Sports. And so, in order for him to launch off and still keep his career, he allowed himself to play the bad guy. So Shannon Sharpe could come off looking like some kind of superstar for the black community. And after that, you know, Shannon went to ESPN. Stephen A. took him in and helped him with ESPN's First Take. And Shannon Sharpe was able to branch off into multiple, you know, social media streams. And that's good. But let's listen to this audio, this Gabrielle Zuniga. You know, this is Shannon Sharpe's accuser. Let's hear her now.
I say you're just gonna like get mad at and you're just gonna hang up on me, so I feel like
I'm gonna hang up on you. You guys want to do it.
what does that even mean?
You have to get it. You want to be to me now, so.
I don't want to be. Don't manipulate me.
Oh no, have mercy. If you said that word one more time, I'm gonna choke out you when I see you. Thank you.
Oh, I don't want to be.
Yes, you do. I don't think you have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, so to me that doesn't sound very threatening. It sounds like, you know, he was just talking to a matter of fact, but then you can't really, you know, say you're going to choke somebody and then it be taken easy, you know, Shannon Sharpe. And of course they had a sexual relationship, and there's also a video that leaked of apparently, you know, Shannon Sharpe having sex with the same accuser, and he offered to pay her up to $50 million to back off from this. And so, you know, that's where Shannon Sharpe is. But let's look at the legal matter with this now. There's another video from Law and Crime YouTube. Let's look at that. Let's play that right here. And so you'll see some of the background information as a result of Shannon Sharpe sexual assault case.
When it comes to the legal case against Shannon Sharpe, we have some new developments for you. From more responses, both from his attorney, his former co-host, to another former NFL player, to Sharpe making a surprise visit, a lot to talk about as the former NFL star and commentator faces serious allegations of rape and sexual assault that have led to his departure at ESPN. This time, we bring on sports attorney Dan Lust to break it all down. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. NFL Hall of Famer, podcaster, sports analyst Shannon Sharpe has been in the news quite a bit this last week, and as updates come in, we have been covering it here too on Sidebar. Now, we know that a Nevada woman filed a $50 million lawsuit against him on April 20th, claiming that he raped her twice in October of 2024 and once in January of 2025. And the sexual assault allegations are incredibly disturbing. That this purportedly happened while she was crying and begging for him to stop. This unidentified Jane Doe also claims that he recorded her without her consent, that he shared those videos with others, that he even threatened her. And I'm going to get into a new response that we haven't even talked about yet in just a minute, but it wasn't just the lawsuit that was shocking. No, it was also the events that transpired afterwards. Because what happens? Sharpe released a statement on his Instagram.
To my family, friends, supporters, and colleagues, I want to speak to you directly and from the heart. This is a shakedown.
And he claims that Jane Doe's attorney, Tony Buzbee, is targeting black men because we know that Tony Buzbee previously sued Sean Combs, Jay-Z, Deshaun Watson, claims that he believes that her side is going to release a 30-second clip of a sex tape, and apparently he encouraged them, just release the whole thing, provide the whole context. Apparently he revealed her name and also the name that she goes by when she purportedly uses or presents on OnlyFans. And overall, he and his team have been adamant that everything that happened between the two of them was consensual. And to prove that, his side released a plethora of text messages seemingly between Sharpe and this Jane Doe. For example, as reported by TMZ, there's one apparent message from October 2023 where Jane Doe seemingly messages Sharpe, "I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it while you're bleeping me." Okay, you fill in the blank. The NY Post reporting on other messages allegedly from Jane Doe, like, "Tie me up and do bad things to me." Now, Buzbee responded and said that these messages are from before the alleged assaults, and really a woman can say yes 99 times, but that one time she says no, that's all that matters. And in that vein, by the way, an audio clip was released by Tony Buzbee, or seemingly by him and his side, capturing the voice of a woman whom attorneys identify as the woman suing Shannon Sharpe, telling him not to manipulate her. And then you hear a man's voice.
Yeah, we heard that part, right? We played that video just earlier, just then. So it's one huge mess. And of course it's a shakedown. You know, it's obvious. You know, and I guess Shannon was getting too big for his britches. He's starting to believe his own power. To me, I don't want to cast any aspersions on Mr. Sharpe, but he looks a bit, you know, I didn't think he was into women. I'll be honest with you. I was shocked when the earlier voice note, not voice note, it was an Instagram recording that leaked, of him having sex with a woman, or would be assumed to be a woman, because we didn't see anyone, we just heard the audio. And so I'm kind of shocked by all of it. I'm more shocked that he's into women like this. But then, you know, there's some other allegations as well that, you know, they have some unnatural sex and anal and all that kind of stuff. So that we can have another conversation about that, all right, and how these acts really portray a man in a relationship. But that's Shannon Sharpe, man. And he also mentioned that the same Tony Buzbee, the same lawyer, is the same guy that's been going after Jay-Z and Diddy and saying that it's some sort of agenda that this Tony Buzbee have. It could be. You know, but then, you know, if you're caught red-handed like this, what do you want people to say? It is what it is. You've been caught red-handed, man. And we're going to talk about Diddy too tonight because apparently he rejected his plea deal. Reported by Munir at ABC. Let's play that video up. Yeah, Sean Diddy Combs reject. He wants to go to trial. He wants to blow trial. Let's listen.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs. What he decided in court today and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted. The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to sexually exploit both women and men for decades. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges that accused him of coercing alleged victims into prolonged, drug-fueled sexual activity that he called freak-offs and threatening them into silence. At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes, as his lawyers argue the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way. Jury selection begins Monday. David, prospective jurors have already started answering written questions. If Combs is convicted, he faces what could amount to a life sentence. David?
Aaron Katursky was following this case for us. Aaron, thank you.
You know, I just can't get over the fact or the matter that, you know, these
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs.
I played it again by accident. That these white men seem to be gloating, you know, over Sean Diddy Combs' downfall. I guess he was too successful for some of them to really bear. And it's really a shame, but to be honest with you, Sean Diddy Combs brought on himself, you know. These freak-offs were absolutely bonkers, man. These freak-offs with the baby oil and you know, asking your girlfriend to sleep with strange men. That's some sick stuff going on in Hollywood, man. With the elites. I can't dig that, man, you know. I'm a humble guy. I believe in God. I believe in the sanctity of my body and keeping it holy and preserved for the Lord Almighty. I believe in that. And so to just throw your body out like that for a few dollars for fame. And some of these people, they only wanted a music record, you know. They only wanted an album. They only wanted a song. Some of them really only wanted to be a part of the in crowd. And that's when you follow man, ladies and gentlemen. When you follow man and you don't follow the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and our God the Father, you're always going to end up in these humiliating, embarrassing situations, because the people who are at these freak-offs party, they're just as guilty as Sean Diddy Combs. And he facilitated it, but they are just as guilty. And they should be ashamed of themselves to even be witnessing that sort of debauchery. That's sickening, man. This is where human beings, the human society has devolved to. This is where we've come to right now, these freak-offs and these sexual assault allegations. This is sickening stuff, man. God cannot be pleased. He cannot be pleased. You know, I pray for Diddy, just as much as I pray for Shannon Sharpe. But we'll have to see how it goes, you know. So, like I said, it wasn't going to be a very long show. Thank you guys for indulging me after I've been off for several months. I had to make sure I get all of my technical stuff up and running again. I got a working light again. My camera's in good shape. My audio equipment is still here. My laptop still works. So thank you guys for sticking with me, man. And I'm back. I'm back doing these shows. So to anyone who watches this later on, please, I thank you for indulging us. And we're going to be back. This is Yuri Kemp, the host of the Lime Vibe podcast, broadcasting from Nassau, the Bahamas. And thank you for joining me again for another insightful Lime Vibe show. My first show for 2025. Let's get out of here.